great Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." That isn't just a wise saying. It's a compass for how to live a meaningful life. Because whether we realize it or not, the people around us shape who we become. You've probably heard the saying, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." But what if some of those people are silently pulling you away from your values, your goals, your peace of mind? What if your environment is quietly sabotaging your growth? Today we're going to look at that question through the powerful lens of Stoic philosophy. We'll uncover the 8 types of people who can derail your progress, drain your energy, and distract you from your purpose, and how to respond to them in a way that protects your inner strength. This isn't about blame or judgment. It's about awareness, clarity, and control, the very core of Stoic wisdom. So in this video, we'll explore not only who to avoid, but how to stay grounded in virtue, no matter who you're dealing with. Type of people to avoid. Number 1, the complainer. We've all encountered this person. Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, or even a family member, someone who always has something negative to say. The food is never right, the weather is always inconvenient, their job is unbearable, and their life, in general, is just one never-ending list of grievances. At first glance, it might seem harmless. You might think, they're just venting, I can handle it. But the truth is, persistent complaining, especially when it's habitual, can quietly erode your mindset. Stoicism teaches us to be vigilant about the influences we allow into our inner world. Why? Because our thoughts, our habits, and our emotions are shaped not only by what we do, but by who we listen to. The complainer doesn't just talk about problems. They dwell in them, live in them, and invite you to move in too. Over time, you'll find that negativity starts to seep into your own thinking. It's subtle. You start focusing more on what's wrong than on what's possible. Your sense of control diminishes. Your gratitude fades. And your peace, the very thing the Stoics guarded above all else, begins to crumble. So how do you respond when someone around you complains constantly? The first option is to limit your exposure whenever possible. If it's someone you can choose to spend less time with, do it. Don't feel guilty. Protecting your mind isn't selfish, it's strategic. But sometimes we can't distance ourselves. What if it's a coworker you see every day? What if it's a loved one? In those cases, the Stoics offer a more profound strategy. Mental detachment. Don't absorb their energy. Picture their words as storm clouds passing across your sky. You observe them, but you don't chase after them. Their negativity is theirs to carry, not yours. You become the still mountain unmoved by the wind. You listen, but you remain centered. You hear them, but you do not let them enter. There's also a third way, and this one is often overlooked. Shift the direction of the conversation. Instead of nodding along or offering sympathy that feeds the cycle, try gently guiding them toward action. If they're complaining about work, ask, "What's one thing you could do differently tomorrow?" If they're upset about a relationship, ask, "What would help you feel more at peace with it?" Most complainers are stuck because they haven't developed the habit of thinking in solutions. And while you can't change them, you can plant a seed. You can model a mindset that says, "I see the problem, but I focus on what I can do." That, right there, is Stoic power. The kind that doesn't resist life's challenges, but rises above them. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. The complainer lives in the illusion that power comes from changing the world, but the Stoic understands real power is mastering your response to it. Every complaint we hear is a test of our patience, a test of our mindset, a test of whether we'll stay grounded or let ourselves be pulled into emotional chaos. And the more you hear complaints without absorbing them, the stronger you become, because you're not just avoiding negativity, you're training yourself to remain calm, focused, and undisturbed. The Stoics believe that the quality of your life is directly tied to the quality of your thoughts, and your thoughts are heavily influenced by the people you allow to speak into your life. So ask yourself, is this person sharpening me or draining me? Is this conversation helping me grow or keeping me stuck? And then act accordingly, not with cruelty, but with clarity. Because choosing peace isn't a rejection of others, it's a commitment to yourself. And if you're serious about walking the Stoic path, the path of wisdom, resilience, and virtue, then learning how to handle the complainer is one of the first great challenges. Don't run from it. Don't suppress it. Face it with awareness and respond with strength. Number 2, the drama magnet. You're moving through life with intention. Your habits are solid, your mind is calm, and your goals are clear. But then someone enters your space like a storm. They stir up conflict, tension, and emotional chaos wherever they go. This is the drama magnet. They thrive on crisis, and whether they realize it or not, their presence pulls you off track, distracting you from your path of peace and discipline. At first, you may not notice the damage. They might even seem exciting. There's always a story, a new emergency, or someone they're upset with, but over time it starts to wear you down. You're not just listening to drama, you're being pulled into it. Your mental energy gets scattered, your focus weakens, and slowly, your inner stillness, the very thing Stoicism teaches us to protect, begins to erode. The Stoics were clear about this. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That strength begins with recognizing which storms are worth walking into and which ones are not yours to weather. The drama. Magnet often disguises their chaos as urgency. They might say, "I just need to vent," or "You won't believe what happened this time." But make no mistake, this isn't just casual conversation. It's a recurring cycle, a pattern that repeats itself. And if you're not careful, you become a character in their story, a story you never asked to be in. Now maybe you're thinking, what if this person is someone close to me? A friend, a sibling, a coworker? Stoicism doesn't demand that we abandon people. It teaches us to maintain our composure, to remain grounded in our values, even when those around us are losing theirs. One method that helps is reflective listening. When the drama magnet comes to you upset, you don't need to offer advice or take sides. Just mirror their emotions. If they say, "Tom completely betrayed me," you can respond with, "Sounds like you feel really hurt by what Tom did." This way you acknowledge them without getting emotionally involved. You don't feed the fire, and you don't become part of the conflict. Another Stoic approach is selective unavailability. You don't need to answer every call. You don't need to show up for every crisis. Set time aside where you are fully unavailable for emotional drama. Not to be rude, but to protect your clarity. Let people know you're focusing on work, study, or simply some needed solitude. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." You can't enjoy the present if you're constantly being pulled into someone else's emotional storms. Let's say your friend is always feuding with someone, Sarah today, Tom tomorrow, then their cousin the week after. Every time you get drawn in, you're expected to support them, defend them, mediate the conflict. And before long, it's your emotional energy that's being depleted. Your friendships are impacted, your time is swallowed, and worst of all, you begin to take on the same reactive mindset they live in. The Stoics would ask you, what are you trading for your peace of mind? Because every moment you spend caught in someone else's drama is a moment you could be using to build strength, discipline, and joy. You don't need to be cold or cut people off completely, but you do need to be firm. Let the drama magnet spin if they must. But don't let them pull you into the storm. Stand still, breathe, observe, offer kindness, not commitment. And remember, you can support someone without solving their problems. You can be present without being pulled. That's the essence of Stoic balance. Being in the world, but not controlled by it. So the next time you're drawn into someone else's emotional chaos, ask yourself, is this my fire to put out? Or am I just standing too close? You have a journey to walk, and drama is the noise that can drown out your purpose. Choose your peace over their chaos. Choose your clarity over their crisis. Because in a world full of distractions, preserving your calm is not just strength, it's freedom. Number 3, the Naysayer. You're building something, a goal, a vision, a better version of yourself. Every step forward takes effort, intention, and belief. But then enters the Naysayer, the voice of doubt wrapped in the mask of realism. This person questions everything you do, not with curiosity, but with skepticism. Are you sure that's going to work? Most people fail at that. Isn't it a bit late for you to try something new? On the surface, they may seem helpful, like they're just looking out for you. But look deeper. Their words are not rooted in encouragement. They're rooted in fear, insecurity, and sometimes even envy. And if you're not careful, their voice becomes your voice. That inner whisper that once said, "You can do this," starts sounding like, "Maybe this isn't for me." The naysayer isn't always loud. Often, their power lies in subtlety. It could be a friend who always brings up worst-case scenarios, a family member who masks criticism as concern, or a coworker who dismisses your ambition with a smirk or a shrug. They don't have to say much, just enough to plant seeds of doubt, and that's where the danger lies. Stoicism teaches us that while we can't control others, we must vigilantly guard our own mind. Marcus Aurelius said, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts." Let that sink in. The people you allow to speak into your dreams are helping shape the thoughts that shape your life. Picture your mind as a canvas. Each idea you have is a brushstroke. When you're motivated and optimistic, the colors are vivid, filled with energy and direction. Now imagine someone walks in and starts painting over it with dull gray strokes of fear and doubt. That's the impact of a naysayer. They don't just question your ideas, they drain the life out of them. And it often starts with a sentence that sounds reasonable. "I just don't want you to get hurt." I knew someone who tried that and failed. But beneath that concern is a desire to keep you small, not always out of malice, but because your growth threatens their comfort. Your courage reminds them of their own inaction. So how do you deal with the naysayer, especially when it's someone close to you? The Stoics would advise not to react with anger, but with clarity. First, shift your approach. Instead of telling them your dreams and waiting for approval, ask for insight. For example, what do you think someone would need to do to succeed at this? This turns the dynamic. They're now focused on problem solving instead of doubt casting. And sometimes even a critic wants to be useful. By redirecting their attention from why it won't work to how it could, you give them a new script to follow. But if the negativity persists, it's time for a deeper boundary. One method is called positive confrontation. When they say something limiting like, "You'll never be able to start your own business," don't get defensive. Respond calmly. That's an interesting point. What would success look like in your eyes? This disarms their authority and challenges them to think more critically. It also sends a subtle signal. I'm not here to absorb your doubt. I'm here to grow, with or without your validation. Now you may wonder, should I just cut naysayers out of my life? Not necessarily. The Stoic path isn't about running from difficulty. It's about standing strong within it. If the person brings value in other areas of your life, keep the relationship. But limit their access to your dreams. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your journey. As Epictetus reminded us, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. But listening doesn't mean believing. Listen, consider, and then decide for yourself what's true. And don't forget, sometimes the harshest naysayer is the one in your own mind. When you've been around external negativity long enough, it starts to echo inside you. You begin questioning your worth, your direction, your capabilities. That's when you must become your own guardian. Use journaling, reflection, and solitude to reconnect with your original why. Remind yourself what lit the fire in you to begin with, because the truth is no one can take your power unless you give it away. The Stoics believed in rational thought, but they also believed in courage. It takes courage to pursue something others can't see. It takes courage to stand alone, and it takes even more courage to keep going when those closest to you express doubt. But your path isn't for them. It's for you. Their disbelief is not your burden. Their fear is not your reality. You don't need permission to live a life aligned with purpose. You just need the discipline to stay the course. So when the naysayer enters your world, recognize them for what they are, a challenge to your resolve. And like any Stoic challenge, it exists to make you stronger. Stay focused. Stay grounded. Let your actions, not their opinions, speak for you. Because in the end, what matters most isn't whether they believed in you. It's whether you believed in yourself, even when no one else did. Number 4, the victim. There's a big difference between someone going through hard times and someone who has made hardship their entire identity. The victim isn't just someone who's struggling. We all struggle. But someone who refuses to take ownership of their life. In every story they tell, they're the one who was wronged, the one who had no choice, the one who couldn't possibly do anything different. They carry a narrative of powerlessness like a shield, using it to deflect any responsibility and avoid any change. And while their story may stir sympathy, it also carries danger. Because if you spend enough time around someone who sees life as something that happens to them, you may start to do the same. Imagine life as a game of chess. The Stoic moves with purpose, strategic, thoughtful, accepting both loss and victory with calm. But the victim doesn't play the game. They just complain that the board is unfair, that the pieces are broken, that someone else must be cheating. And the longer you listen, the more their narrative starts to infect your mindset. You begin to doubt your control. You start to view your problems as unsolvable. You internalize the idea that maybe, just maybe, it's all out of your hands. And that's where Stoicism draws a firm line. The core of Stoic philosophy is this: focus only on what is within your control. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But the victim rejects that truth. They cling to their helplessness like it's a lifeline. And when you try to offer solutions, they resist. When you suggest change, they push back. Because letting go of the victim mindset means facing something even scarier than pain: responsibility. Now let's be clear. Stoicism doesn't lack compassion. It doesn't dismiss suffering. But it challenges the idea that suffering is a permanent identity. It asks, what now? Not what happened. It demands action, even if it's just a change in perspective. And if you're walking a path of growth, surrounding yourself with people stuck in the victim role will only slow you down. You'll find yourself constantly trying to lift them, carry them, rescue them. But the truth is, some people don't want to be rescued. They want to stay where they are, as long as they're not alone in the pit. So how do you handle this? With empathy, but with boundaries. You can care without carrying. You can listen without agreeing. One powerful approach is compassionate detachment. This means you offer support, but you refuse to participate in the drama of helplessness. You can say things like, "That sounds really hard. What do you think you might do next?" Or, "That must be frustrating. What's within your control right now?" These questions shift the conversation away from blame and toward agency. And if the person isn't ready to move in that direction, then you lovingly create distance, not to punish them, but to protect your energy. Let's say you have a friend who's constantly blaming others for their failed relationships. Every breakup is someone else's fault. Every disappointment is a betrayal. And every conversation leaves you drained. You spend hours listening, advising, trying to help, but nothing changes. That's because the victim doesn't want solutions. They want sympathy. They want validation that their pain justifies their inaction. And over time, your role shifts. You're no longer their friend, you're their emotional crutch. That's when it's time to step back. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That wisdom applies here too. If you find yourself around someone constantly trapped in the victim mindset, don't mirror them. Don't argue with them. Just be the example. Live your philosophy. Take action. Own your mistakes. Face your obstacles with calm determination. Show them, through your life, that it's possible to feel pain without becoming it. And most importantly, watch yourself. Because the real danger isn't just them. It's the part of you that's tempted to join them. It's easy to slip into victimhood. To say, "I can't because of this situation," or "They did this to me, so now I can't grow." But that's not the Stoic way. The Stoic way is to rise, to choose power over pity, clarity over blame, action over excuses. So be kind to the victim, but don't become one. Show compassion, but protect your peace. And if their story becomes louder than your purpose, it's time to walk away. Not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom. Number 5. The toxic positivist. At first glance, the toxic positivist seems harmless, even uplifting. They're the ones who greet you with smiles, radiate optimism, and say things like, "Just be happy," or "It could always be worse." But spend enough time around them, especially during difficult moments, and you'll begin to sense something deeper, a denial of reality. The toxic positivist doesn't want to face life's full truth. They don't want to acknowledge pain, complexity, or challenge. And worse, they pressure others to bury their feelings under glittery affirmations and forced smiles. To the Stoic, this mindset is not only misguided, it's dangerous. Life, as the Stoics saw it, is a mixture of joy and suffering, order and chaos, light and dark. To deny one half of that equation is to live in delusion. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." But enjoying the present doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means accepting what is fully, the pain, the sorrow, the uncertainty, and responding with wisdom. The toxic positivist skips that acceptance. Instead, they push a shallow kind of cheerfulness, as if discomfort itself is a problem that must be silenced. Let's say you're going through a breakup. You're confused, grieving, trying to make sense of it all. You reach out to someone, hoping for space to process, maybe even some guidance. But instead of understanding, you get hit with, "You're better off," or "Don't be sad, smile and move on." These phrases, while often well-intended, shut down emotional depth. They invalidate experience. And worst of all, they suggest that if you're not feeling happy, something is wrong with you. But the Stoics knew better. They believed in facing suffering head-on, not wallowing in it, but neither running from it. Pain is not the enemy. Denial is. What makes the toxic positivist so difficult to recognize is that their energy feels good, at least initially. They're enthusiastic, energetic, always looking for the bright side. But Stoicism doesn't seek the bright side, it seeks the true side. And truth by nature includes discomfort. The danger of toxic positivity is that it creates pressure. Pressure to suppress, to hide, to pretend. And when you're around it long enough, you begin to feel guilty for feeling anything less than joyful. You start to mask your struggles. You smile when you want to cry. And that over time fractures your inner peace. So how do you deal with a toxic positivist? First, recognize their limitations. Most people like this aren't trying to harm you. They're often afraid of negative emotions, their own and others. Their positivity is a shield, but that doesn't mean you have to accept it. The Stoic response is not to argue or lecture them, but to calmly assert your truth. If they say, "Just focus on the good," you can respond, "There's good here, yes, but I'm also feeling grief, and that's okay." You're not being negative, you're being whole. You're honoring the full range of human emotion, which is essential for real growth. Another tool is what modern psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to name your emotions precisely. Instead of saying, "I'm bad," say, "I'm disappointed." Instead of "I'm sad," say, "I'm grieving a loss." This Stoic-like precision helps you stay connected to your emotions without being ruled by them. It also signals to others that your experience is valid, even if it's not sunny or convenient. Now, if you find yourself constantly around someone who refuses to acknowledge anything difficult, it may be time to set boundaries. You don't have to absorb their version of reality. You can quietly choose depth over delusion. You can journal, reflect, surround yourself with people who understand that strength doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means enduring it, learning from it, and rising through it. The Stoics didn't write about constant happiness. They wrote about inner calm, resilience, and self-mastery, none of which can exist without facing life's hardships with honesty. And here's the most important part. Don't become one yourself. In a world obsessed with good vibes only, you can choose something richer, truth with courage. Let others avoid, deflect, and dismiss. You, the Stoic, are called to face life directly, not with bitterness, but with bravery. You can be optimistic, but your optimism must be earned through clarity, not forced through denial. So beware of the toxic positivist. Their words may sparkle, but their mindset is shallow. Don't let yourself be reduced to fake smiles and empty mantras. Instead, embrace the full spectrum of experience. Let your life include both sunshine and rain. Because only by honoring both can you grow into the calm, powerful, fully alive human being Stoicism is guiding you to become. Number 6. The Manipulator. Some people don't need to raise their voice to control a room. They don't use brute force. They use subtle influence, emotional tactics, guilt, flattery, pressure disguised as kindness. This is the manipulator. The Stoics would warn us to be especially cautious of this type of person, because they don't attack you directly. They guide your decisions from behind the curtain, and by the time you realize you're not living by your own values anymore, you're already deep inside their game. They've taken your goodwill, your empathy, your desire to be liked, and used it as a tool to shape your actions. And the worst part, you often don't notice it until something important is already lost. Your time, your peace, your autonomy. To a Stoic, nothing is more important than agency, the ability to choose your response to life with reason, not reaction. Epictetus famously said, We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. But what happens when someone is subtly shifting your responses without your awareness? That's what the manipulator does. They don't argue, they orchestrate, they plant emotional traps. After all I've done for you, or I just thought you cared enough to help. Their weapon isn't anger, it's obligation. Imagine someone who always finds a way to make you feel responsible for their happiness. They rarely ask outright. Instead, they frame it in ways that make you feel selfish if you say no. You're the only one who understands me. Or, if you don't come through, I don't know what I'll do. These aren't just words, they're strings. And with each one, they tie your decisions closer to their needs and further from your principles. Over time, your actions are no longer rooted in choice, but in fear of letting them down. That's how the manipulator thrives, not by force, but by making you forget your own power. So, what do? The Stoic response isn't to fight back with the same tactics. It's to reclaim your inner authority. One powerful technique is called fogging, acknowledging their words without surrendering to their pressure. If someone says, "You're so lucky, you can afford to help me," you can respond, "You're right that I've worked hard, and I'm happy to support where I can, but not this time." You agree with the truth, but set the boundary, calmly, firmly, without apology. Another method is to speak from your values. Instead of just saying no, say what you're saying yes to. I've committed this time to my family. I'm choosing rest tonight because my well-being matters. This keeps your choices grounded in your own philosophy, not in their emotional traps. Remember, Stoicism doesn't ask you to be cold, it asks you to be clear. The clearer you are about your values, the harder it is for anyone to manipulate you. And if they push harder, let them. One of the most powerful forms of Stoic self-mastery is learning to sit with discomfort. The manipulator counts on your emotional reaction. They want you to feel guilt, urgency, panic, because those feelings make you easier to move. But a Stoic doesn't react emotionally to pressure. They observe it, breathe through it, and then respond with intention. If someone says, "I guess I just can't count on you anymore," a Stoic doesn't rush to defend. They might reply, "I'm still here, but I have to honor my limits." That's strength. Let's be honest. Sometimes the manipulator is someone close, a partner, a friend, even a parent. That makes it harder, but it also makes it more necessary. Because manipulation in close relationships doesn't just cost you freedom, it damages your self-trust. It teaches you to doubt your own decisions. And once you lose that, everything else becomes fragile. So be vigilant, not paranoid, just aware. Watch how people make you feel after you say no. If they respect it, you're dealing with someone healthy. If they punish, guilt, or pressure you, you're dealing with a manipulator. And no matter how charming, intelligent, or nice they appear, your peace is more important than their approval. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But your thoughts are shaped by the conversations you're having. And if someone is constantly bending your will to serve their own, it's time to step back. Reclaim your space. Speak from your core. And remind yourself that you don't exist to fulfill other people's emotional scripts. You are the author of your own story. Let no one else hold the pen. Number 7, the time vampire. Time is the one resource we can never get back. It's finite, slipping away moment by moment, yet most people treat it like it's unlimited. The Stoics didn't. To them, time wasn't just valuable, it was sacred. Seneca famously said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And one of the most dangerous threats to your time isn't just procrastination or distraction, it's the time vampire, the person who constantly drains your attention, your energy, and your schedule for things that don't matter to you. They don't mean harm, but they feed on your availability. And if you're not intentional, they will consume the hours you need to build your purpose, your peace, and your legacy. The time vampire often shows up with small, seemingly innocent requests. A coworker who pops in to chat just for a second, every hour. A friend who expects you to drop everything and talk through the same drama again and again. A family member who asks you to run errands you never agreed to. These requests feel minor, but their weight is cumulative. One interruption leads to another. One obligation turns into a pattern. Before you know it, your days are spent on other people's priorities while your own dreams sit on hold. The Stoics were ruthless with time. They believed in guarding it with the same intensity that others guard money, and they were right to do so. Because lost money can be earned back, lost time cannot. Every moment you spend being reactive, every minute handed away without thought, sex is a moment taken from your deeper purpose. And the time vampire thrives on your passivity. They don't force their way in. They wait for you to leave the door open. So how do you defend against this kind of person? First, you must recognize the cost. Most people don't realize how much time they're losing, not just in hours, but in focus. Every time you switch gears, you lose momentum. Your attention splinters, and over time, your creative energy fades. The first Stoic strategy, then, is intentional solitude. Create boundaries in your day, quiet zones where no one has access to your time or attention. This isn't selfish, it's strategic. If you want to offer your best to the world, you need time to think, reflect, and focus. The second strategy is learning to say no, clearly and without guilt. A time vampire will often disguise their requests as emergencies or favors, but that doesn't mean you have to comply. When someone says, "Can I borrow you for just a quick minute?" you can reply, "I'm focused on something important right now. Can we talk later?" Or even more directly, "I'm not available at the moment." That simple phrase, "I'm not available," is powerful. It doesn't offer excuses. It doesn't invite negotiation. It asserts your right to protect your own schedule. Now you might worry, won't they think I'm rude? Maybe. But a Stoic doesn't live for approval. A Stoic lives for principle. And if your principle is that your time is precious, then you must act like it. People may resist at first, but eventually they'll adapt to the boundaries you set, or they'll fall away. Either outcome is a win. Let's say you have a friend who invites you to every social event, calls you at all hours, and expects you to be constantly available. You care about them, but their constant need is draining. The Stoic answer is not to ghost them or lash out. It's to calmly redefine the relationship. "I care about you, but I need more space to focus on what matters most to me." That conversation might be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And in the discomfort, you regain control. The truth is, most time vampires aren't malicious. They're simply unaware. They assume you're available because you haven't told them otherwise. But that's your responsibility. The Stoics taught us to take full ownership of how we respond to life. That includes how we manage our time, and who gets access to it. You have goals. You have work that matters. You have a life to live with purpose and depth. Every hour you spend on trivial interruptions is an hour you could have spent in deep work, reflection, or meaningful connection. The time vampire will always be there, lurking in the form of unnecessary meetings, small talk, endless texting, or passive obligations. But your defense is strong boundaries and clear intention. So ask yourself, who gets your time? Are they lifting you or draining you? Are they helping you live with greater clarity, or pulling you away from it? Because in the Stoic life, every minute counts. And when you master your time, you master your life. Number 8, the identity shifter. There's a particular kind of person whose influence is hard to detect, not because they're loud, but because they blend in. They change depending on who they're with, shifting their values, their tone, even their beliefs to fit the room. Around you, they seem aligned, agreeable, even inspired. But when the room changes, so do they. These are the identity shifters, people who lack a stable core and mold themselves to their surroundings, not out of wisdom, but out of insecurity. And the danger of being close to them is this. Over time, they'll encourage you to do the same. Not through words, but through example, through energy, through quiet suggestion that it's safer to blend than to stand firm. Stoicism teaches us to live according to nature, our inner nature, our character, our reason. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's the call of the Stoic, to become consistent, grounded, and unshakable. But when you surround yourself with people who shift identities like clothing, it becomes harder to stay true to your own. You begin to question yourself. You start thinking, maybe I should be more flexible. Maybe it's smarter to play both sides. Maybe integrity is too much work. And that's exactly how compromise begins. Not as a decision, but as a slow erosion. The identity shifter thrives in ambiguity. They're often charming, adaptable, and socially intelligent. They know what to say, how to say it, and who to say it to. But pay attention. Their beliefs change with their environment. Around one group, they champion discipline and self-mastery. Around another, they mock it. In one moment, they agree with your boundaries. In the next, they're violating them without apology. These aren't people seeking truth. They're seeking comfort, popularity, and approval. And for a Stoic, that mindset is poison. So how do you recognize this type before it's too late? Watch for inconsistency. Do their values change depending on who's watching? Do their convictions collapse under pressure? Do they praise you in private, but remain silent when others criticize you? These are all signs of someone who lacks a personal code. And Stoicism is a philosophy built on the very opposite. The idea that your principles should be fixed, regardless of the world around you. Let's imagine you're working toward a personal goal. Maybe it's building a business, improving your health, or developing a more disciplined life. At first, the identity shifter supports you. They say all the right things, but when you start getting results, they shift. Suddenly, they make jokes about your routines. They tell others you're too serious. Or worse, they copy your language without living your values, diluting what you stand for. That subtle sabotage can be more damaging than open criticism, because it confuses your clarity. It makes you doubt the strength of your own vision. The Stoic answer is not to confront them with anger, but to withdraw with wisdom. You don't need to debate someone who lives without roots. You just need to stay anchored in your own. Epictetus once said, "Seek not the good in external things. Seek it in yourselves." That includes approval. That includes social harmony. A Stoic doesn't need the world to agree. They just need to know who they are and act like it. One powerful strategy is to quietly test their consistency. Share something that requires moral clarity, a story, a stance, a choice that reflects your values. See how they respond. Do they stand with you when it's inconvenient? Do they backpedal when pressure appears? If so, you have your answer. And when that answer reveals a lack of integrity, don't try to fix them. Just adjust your proximity. You don't need to hate them. You just need to stop letting their inconsistency shape your reality. And more importantly, be on guard against becoming one yourself. In a world where approval is currency, the temptation to shift your identity to fit in is everywhere. But the Stoic path isn't about fitting in. It's about standing tall, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs you. Because in the end, what matters is not how many people agree with you. It's how faithfully you lived according to your reason and virtue. The identity shifter fears rejection. The Stoic fears regret. One seeks applause, the other seeks alignment. Choose wisely who you let close, because over time their way of living may become your own. No matter how strong you are, the people around you will shape your path. Some will lift you, others will drain you. The Stoic life is about knowing the difference and having the courage to protect your peace. Because your time, your focus, your character, they are not infinite, they're sacred. So choose carefully, guard your energy, and always stand rooted in the values that define who you truly are. If this video spoke to something in you, like, share, and subscribe to Deep Dive Stoic, where we turn ancient wisdom into real strength for modern life. And before you go, check out one of the suggested videos on your screen right now. It might be exactly what you need next. Thank you for being a part of our growing community. Stay strong, stay focused, and stay true to yourself.